What's up, guys? We are back again with another episode of the podcast. Today, we got a special guest. We got X, a.k.a. Xavier Scruggs, MLB Network's finest. X, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. Thanks for making time with your busy schedule to come on the podcast, man. I just want to talk to you for a little bit of time, get to know you a little bit, pick your brain on some stuff. So, first thing I want to do is get a rundown of like your day-to-day schedule, all right? Because obviously you're on MLB Network, you're shooting content, you're gallivanting at extravagant restaurants at nighttime. I heard saw you had some of the best grits and fish or something last night.
Yeah, man.
So
Had
tell me,
really
give me
good
what
fish
your
and grits
schedule.
yesterday.
And then obviously being a father as well. So give me, what does your day look like normally, week to week?
Yeah, no, normally I have in the morning MLB Network radio on Sirius XM. I'll do 7 to 10. I'll do baseball like for 3 hours in the morning. So that's like the one thing that allows me to soak in everything that happened the night before and kind of the storylines moving forward. Something that I've loved. I do that with Steve Phillips in the morning, channel 89 for anybody that wants to know on Sirius XM. But yeah, I do that, and then I'll do my daily show, which is Off Base on MLB Network. That's usually Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, depending upon if there's games going on around that time. And then I'll do ESPN as well. I do ESPN Baseball Tonight. That's usually on Sundays, but most days it's radio and off base, which I love to do. Off base is really cool because it's more of a roundtable type discussion, and it's only an hour show, and it's really just us kind of nonchalantly talking about what's going on in the game, but not so much numbers, because you can leave those to the other shows. So it's fun for me. I get to do a lot of different things. And I get to do a lot from home too. So having a home studio is really, really cool because then I can spend more time with the kids. How you talked about, I got 3 kids, which they take up most of my time, which is how it should be. So that's
Right.
kind of how it goes for me.
Yeah. Off base is really nice because you do talk more about like those storylines and how things impact the game as opposed to like the X's and O's.
Yeah.
So that's a nice change of pace when you're looking at new MLB media and content of that nature. So obviously you not started your Instagram, but you started like your content creation journey pretty recently. You dropped a video kind of like explaining like, hey, I'm Xavier Scruggs. This is who I used to play for. And now you start making content. So I want to know like what your team looks like around you. You got editors, graphic designers. Like what does your team look like in order to like see that finished product that we see on social media?
Yeah, no, I think it's important to surround yourself with the right people. Definitely have an editor who does a lot of great work. A lot of the work really started with me, and I had to learn a lot of the process of kind of, being able to put some clips together, being able to, write scripts out to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And a lot of the stuff really came from organic learning, right? Just using YouTube and kind of learning about the process of using Adobe and all that stuff and getting a mic like this and trying to learn how to use GarageBand to use the audio to put it on certain files. So that's been cool for me. So I get to do a lot of the process myself, but definitely have a great editor in my corner. Try to make sure that I have a videographer whenever I want to catch some content of myself or try to give some of that authentic content in which a lot of people don't get to see all the time. More that behind the scenes of, what I get to do every day for work, for family stuff, lifestyle stuff. I like to show all those aspects. So it's important to keep the right people in my corner to be able to help me out in that sense as well.
So that brings me to my next point because obviously you're a busy guy, and some people looking from the outside would say like, you've done it all. You played in the game. Now you get to talk about the game, and you're doing content. So as an athlete, as a high achieving person, we always set goals, right? What do I want to achieve this year, next year? So in the short term, I want to know what kind of goals do you have because you have your own show, you're on TV, you're working in the game. So what do your goals look like upcoming like this rest of the year? What's that look like?
Yeah. I'd say for me, like one thing I want to get back into is really podcasting. I haven't got back into podcasting since 2021. I had a show called The Bigs that was actually really developed by MLB and myself, which was an amazing podcast, but they didn't want it. They ended up not picking it up the second year. And I was devastated, man, because I felt like I had some really cool conversations with a lot of great players, even former players, Hall of Famers like Ozzie Smith. So that's something that I really want to get back to and really be able to develop something that is more for the everyday casual fan, right? Somebody that may not know every single player in the game, but they can enjoy the stories and want to continue to learn more about the game of baseball and want to watch more. So that's in the immediate future. That's kind of what I'm looking to get back towards, and I'm excited about.
Well, here's step one, right? You're back on another podcast, right? So
Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
fun. It's nice talking to players. I was on Foul Territory the other day with Scott Braun and all those guys, and just getting to talk to former players and getting to talk either about content or the game and stuff. It's really nice because social media has really made our world much smaller now. I would never get to talk to you in any kind of other situation, but since we have social media and we can interact that way, it really makes it special. Connects players and just average schmucks like me. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to get into some fun stuff. Okay, so there's a narrative out there. All right, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So if Babe Ruth played in the game today, what would that look like?
If Babe Ruth played in the game today, man, I don't know,
What's he
man.
hitting?
Hey, he may be in AAA or AA, man. They facing some of these guys throwing 105 miles an hour. I don't know if his type of game would play in today's game. Honestly, it would be tough to really imagine that, just because those guys had different swing paths. Those guys had different bats. Like, obviously you talk about somebody that had some power, but I mean, the hand-eye coordination, we would have to put that to the test with some of the nasty dudes that we have on the mound today. So, you know what, my dude might be hitting, 200, 230, but I might say he might be best off in AAA.
Yeah, I mean 230. That's generous in my book, because I mean they'll be posting those old videos and like his feet are all tangled up and moving, and like some of the guys they got other jobs. They're either a painter or they were just in the war last year. Like they're not, the game is obviously developed a lot differently. So when people
for a long time he never faced Dominican, Latin players, didn't face black players. Like those are some of the best talented players that we have in the game, even back then. So it's tough to see. It's tough to compare, obviously, but it would be tough to say that he would be an amazing hitter in today's game.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I don't think he sniffs 200, but that's just me. I want to get your thoughts on rule changes. So I have my own thoughts on the rule changes. I want to know, do you like them? And more importantly, are they doing what they were intended to do and bringing in a new audience? Because my opinion is, I say, until I see the numbers, I don't believe it. I say if you didn't watch the game at 3 hours, you're not watching it 2.5. If the bases were this big, you're not watching it because they're this big. I don't think that moves the needle for casual fans, in my opinion, until I see different kind of numbers. First thing you could do is end the blackouts. If I pay $163 a year for MLB Network, I want to be able to get my local team. So.
Yeah.
I just want to know what your thought is on that, because the whole idea behind these new rules was to bring in a new audience. Do you like them, and is that working?
Yeah, I think I think the thing with this whole new game. First of all, I love the new rules. I love the speed of the game. I love there's more action that we're watching now instead of delayed time. I think the as far as the result and what we're looking for, I think this might be something that we have to look back at 5-10 years down the line, because I think you're looking at more of how does this shift within the next generation? How does this shift their viewing perspective? Because it may not have an effect within 1 year, right? Because we're not going to see necessarily everybody start jumping on the bandwagon of a new baseball game. But what we will probably see is the trend of more people saying, okay, this is a game that I can be more attracted to. This is something that I can go to the ballpark and watch more, or this is something that I can pull up a streaming service and want to watch more. So I think that ends up being more of what you see instead of the immediate result that some may be looking for. Because remember, the next generation, their attention span is going to be 10 seconds or less, 8 seconds or less. And I think that's going to play a huge part, just having our game sped up a little bit. But ultimately, I like the action. I like the idea of more stolen bases coming back within the game. I think that was something huge within the 80s and 90s when you're sitting on the edge of your seat and you're like, okay, this dude is stealing. Like, there's no doubt this dude is stealing, but is he going to get thrown out? And I think that's what you get more of now. And I think that changes kind of the game plan, the game strategy now too. So as much as game strategy was taken away with the shift, I think you start to see game strategy in other areas within the game that we can be excited about. So I love the rule changes. I love some of the things that we have going on, and I hope that the game continues to celebrate those things.
Yeah, I can appreciate what they're trying to do. I'm just not a fan of the game being affected because of it. I don't want dead time. I don't want to sit around. I want action. But when, oh my gosh, the guy yesterday on the Pirates, Maggie, who just came up to the bigs, right? He spent over 1,000 games in the minors. Yeah. They give him a standing ovation. He gives a little tip of the cap. Strike one. You didn't address the pitcher, and it's like, can we start using some common sense? Maybe next season we'll implement little common sense rules. Right. So that's my only gripe with that. But like you said, you're right. In an age of social media, those attention spans, you can just swipe. So the attention spans are very, very quick. I wanted to get your thought on some players today. Okay, I want the most swaggiest player in MLB today.
Swaggiest player, I think it's got to be Ronald Acuna Jr. Just from head to toe, what this dude is doing, the chains that he's wearing, the uniform, what he's actually doing out there on the field. He's got to be one of the swaggier players. I got to look at Jazz Chisholm Jr. I got to look at Fernando Tatis. Some of these guys are swagging out there, but for me, at the top has to be Ronald Acuna Jr.
Sure. Yeah, speaking of Tatis, I like at Wrigley Field, they were, steroids, and he was doing like a little shimmy. And I like that because he's willing to play the villain, and I love that. I don't got to be loved by everybody, but you're going to watch me, whether I'm a villain or not.
Absolutely.
You got a most underrated player for me?
Most underrated. I still think really Dansby Swanson is underrated. This is a dude that learned everything under Freddie Freeman. He learned how to be a leader. He learned what winning looks like. We talked so much about the different shortstops last year who were available in free agency, Correa, Turner, and some other guys still being maybe ahead of him. But I think that this kid is still getting a lot better. We've seen the power numbers jump up. We've seen him use the whole field more, the Gold Glove ability. Year after year, the defense is getting better. I think the Cubs really got something special with Dansby Swanson. I think you can already start to see it as the Cubs are playing really good baseball as well.
Yeah, he was almost treated as a consolation prize at the beginning of the season. Maybe we didn't get Correa or whoever, but we got Dansby Swanson. And that has been proven to be wrong because he is elite, like you mentioned. I saw some numbers today looking at his whiff percentage and his ISO power, and he's ranking in the top 8% in baseball, which is just outstanding.
Well, there's just intangibles too, like that. You just, the numbers are ridiculous, as you said, and when you look at some of those, really peripherals, but I love this. The intangibles are something that we can't really account for a lot of the times. And as a player, as a former player, you can tell which players can bring that to the table and enhance those things better than other players. And he's been one of those guys that I see that specifically for me.
Sure, and like you said, that probably goes with a winning culture. The players that he played with in Atlanta, I'm sure, have to be accredited to that as well.
Absolutely.
Maybe an uncomfortable question, most overrated player?
The most overrated player. Most overrated player. Dude. That's a, yeah.
Gotta throw someone under the bus.
Most overrated. Dude, man. Give me a couple players. I don't know. I'm trying to think who's overrated.
There's arguments Mike Trout, maybe because of the environment that he plays in. He hits his 30 home runs and gets on base, but he just kind of just hides out in Anaheim. That's, some talks that I've heard around.
Though, like we're literally watching a Hall of Famer. We don't really.
Sure.
At times, I think he could be underrated because of the numbers that he's putting up consistently, and maybe not because of he doesn't necessarily have a full healthy season every year, but I think we have to appreciate that we're watching one of the best players to ever play this game. So Mike Trout's hard for me in that sense. I'm trying to think of another player that
how about Madison Bumgarner? That's a layup.
Yeah, obviously that's somebody that got paid a lot of money that hadn't performed. We saw basically get released for that, just not being able to perform. But yeah, maybe at the time he was overrated at that time.
Sure. We'll go with that. We'll make it easy. All right.
Yeah.
I'll say it. I said it. You didn't. So just blame it on me. Now I just want to cover teams really quick. Best home run celebration. I know we've seen a lot of them this year. They're starting to get creative, and I think that's another way that, fans can kind of connect with their team. So have you seen any home run celebrations on a team that you think is like your favorite?
Yeah, one of my favorites has to be the Pirates and them bringing out the sword. Obviously, that's something that's pretty cool. And I love the idea that not just the prop, but you see like some of the older guys enjoying watching the younger guys do it. Santana, Andrew McCutchen. They love when those guys are in there hitting homers and they're bringing out the sword. I also really like it's kind of low key, but the Boston Red Sox bringing out the inflatable dumbbells. Like, that's pretty cool to me because it's like, I'm lifting. I'm getting after it. I remember seeing Yoshida do it for the first time, and I was like, hey, they got something there. I like that. They did a good job. But there's a lot of good ones right now.
Yeah, the Orioles, what do they call it? The Dong Bong or whatever.
Bong, yeah, that's really good too.
That one's pretty good. I want to see teams that are going to overachieve this season.
Teams that are going to overachieve. I think I'm a believer in the Rangers. I think this is a team that, we weren't quite sure what's going to happen when they bring over guys that have a lot of arm injury history. I think this team makes the playoffs. I think we're so concerned about how good Seattle is, how good Houston is. Even the Angels in that division with Mike Trout and Ohtani. I think the Rangers end up getting themselves to the postseason. The Pirates, I think we have to buy into the Pirates at this point just because of what we've seen from a pitching standpoint, what they have, what they could add eventually at the trade deadline as well if this team is all in. I think that's another one of them. And then I think the Cubs too. Like I really like the Cubs. I don't know if I like them better than a lot of the other top tier playoff teams that we're looking at. Padres, Dodgers, Braves, Mets, Phillies. I don't know if I like them better than them, but I like them as the team to come out of the Central.
I call those teams frisky, X. Like when they're going up against like a Dodgers or an Astros, and maybe they're a plus 200 to win. I'm like, those games they'll steal those games from you with those lineups with the Pirates and the Cubs. So those were going to be my two picks as well. Pirates and the Cubs. They're hard not to buy into, especially early this season. And then underachieving. Last question. Any team that you think is just going to be underwhelming, maybe that they had high hopes or high expectations that they're not going to meet.
Yeah, man, this is a tough one too. I think that the White Sox still had those expectations of, being a really talented team. I think they're going to end up being disappointing. I just don't know what's going on there. It's like every facet of their game is just not consistent. I think another team that we're looking at too, that had some high hopes is probably the Dodgers. Like I really don't think that the Dodgers end up being the team that we've seen them be for such a long period of time. I think the Padres end up taking that over. I know the Padres haven't gotten off to a great start, but I think they end up over 162. I think they end up showing who's the top team there in the West. I'm trying to think of anybody else. And I think that's about it. The Cardinals, I'm looking at the Cardinals struggling right now, but I just like that offense is too good to be held down for too long. So I think that team ends up doing what they need to do.
I would say also the Phillies, just they've been very inconsistent, kind of they haven't really found a groove, and expectations are very high here, especially, going to the World Series last year, especially when Bryce Harper gets back. I think that's when expectations go even higher. And fans, I think, need to kind of curb that, because although he is an all-star, 2-time MVP, he can only have so much of an impact. There has to be, the bullpen has to be better, and when you're 1 through 6 have to be better. So I think they obviously have high expectations, and they're just not quite there.
Yeah. No, see, some of these teams that have a lot of talent, like, it's hard for me to be down on them this early, because those teams end up usually doing a really good job when other teams that have started off really fast end up falling off. So I still like the Phillies a lot. Expectations will always be high in Philadelphia, that's for sure. And they should be, especially going after and signing some guys in the bullpen that you mentioned, and you haven't seen the bullpen be that good. But Trey Turner, right? You bring over Trey Turner. He himself hasn't gotten off to the start that he normally is off to, or that you'll normally see him through consistent production. But I think this team is just gonna be fine. I think the Mets end up falling off a little bit, and we see the Phillies and the Braves come out of that East.
The Mets fall off again. Story as old as time, X. We've seen it time and time again. Well, that was all I have for you today, man. I just want to say I appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck with everything that you're doing. And then I hope we can meet up again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we can do it again soon, man. Excited for it.
All right, X. Guys, give him a follow, Instagram. Watch him. X, just plug everything you're on. You got MLB Network. Let us know where everyone can find you.
Yeah. MLB Network, you find me on ESPN, but where I have a lot of fun is just on social. Xavier _Scruggs on Twitter, Xavier Scruggs on Instagram. I have YouTube, TikTok, all that, man. So definitely come through and come hit me in the DMs. Like, I always respond in the DMs. I always love chatting baseball, anything else. So let's do it.
All right. Appreciate it, X. We will see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.